Shalom, holy brothers and sisters. This week's Bible portion is Parshat Vayetzeh. The portion means, and he went out. And where we left off last week was that Yaakov, or Jacob, had just bamboozled his brother out of the birthright, and his brother was really pissed off. So now Jacob has to run away because his brother Esau wants to kill him. So his mother, Rebecca, tells him to go to her brother Lavan, who lives in a different town. So Yaakov takes off, and on his way to his uncle Lavan, he camps out at a place, and he uses rocks for pillows, and he has the famous dream with Jacob's ladder. So the commentaries say that the ladder represents life, and that the ladder, there's movement either up or down. So in life, we're either moving up spiritually or we're moving down spiritually. And let me read to you that verse. Okay. Vayachlom, which means and he dreamed. Vehine sulam, and here is a ladder. Mutzav alza, standing on the ground. Virosho magia hashamayma, and the head of the ladder is reaching the heavens. So the commentaries tell us that in life we always have challenges, and when we take the higher road, we're moving up on the spiritual ladder. And when we, God forbid, make the wrong choices, or we make mistakes, then we're moving down. And it's funny, I was just watching the Disney Channel with my daughter the other day, and they said the feel-good thing is not necessarily the right thing to do, and so it is with life. And so it's teaching us in the Bible that sometimes the thing that seems right is not necessarily the right thing to do. So when Yaakov finally reaches his destination, he arrives at a well. And who does he meet at the well? None other than his future wife, Rachel. And when he sees her, it's like love at first sight. And he tells her that who he is, and she runs and tells her father. So when he sees her, it says actually that he wept. And, we always tell our little boys, big boys don't cry and things like that. But here we see a grown man, and the question is, why was he crying? So the answer is, there's two reasons why he was crying. One was that he saw in prophecy that he would not be buried with his beloved Rachel, and he was sad about that. And the other thing was that he felt so bad that he came empty-handed, because he was running away from his brother. He was running for his life, and he didn't come with any gifts. And he felt so bad that he wanted to bring gifts for his family and for his future wife, and he had nothing to give, and he felt really, really bad. So the saying that, big boys don't cry is not true, because here we have a grown man who was so sensitive and so, expressive that he actually wept over these matters. So this week's Bible portion has a very famous story about how Jacob was deceived. He wanted to marry Rachel, and he offered his uncle Lavan that he would work for him for 7 years in exchange for her hand in marriage. And his uncle agreed that he could marry his daughter after 7 years. And then he swapped sisters on the wedding night. Yaakov didn't realize that he had married the older sister, Leah, accidentally instead of his beloved Rachel. And when he spoke to Lavan about this, trickery, Lavan said to him, well, it is our custom to marry the eldest daughter before the youngest daughter. So it was really like a backstabbing comment, because what he was meaning to say was like putting him down for for stealing the birthright from his older brother. And it just shows like what kind of person Lavan was. He was a very sarcastic and not such a good person. But the two sisters loved each other very much, and they helped each other very much. And even though they were both jealous of each other, they both tried to help one another. Like, for example, Rachel and Jacob kind of suspected that Lavan might try to pull off something like this. And so Rachel and Jacob had like some kind of like hand signal or sign that they would do so that he would know that he's marrying the right woman, because in Jewish marriage, the face is completely covered, and it's not a see-through veil. So because Rachel didn't want to shame her sister Leah, she didn't want to embarrass her, she actually gave her the hand signals so that she could do the signs and he could think that he was really marrying Rachel. So then Jacob agreed to work for an additional 7 years so that he could have Rachel. And then eventually, after the 14 years, he did marry Rachel. So now he had both sisters. Now, as you can imagine, there was some rivalry there. And Leah had child after child, and Rachel was not able to get pregnant. So Rachel was very upset over this, that Leah was able to have children and she was not. Eventually, Rachel did have 2 sons, Yosef and Benjamin, the most beloved of the 12 tribes to Jacob. And Leah had 6 of the 12 tribes herself, and then each of their maids or servants or helpers, whatever you want to call them, maidservants, also had 2 kids each, so that makes up the 12 tribes. And actually Leah, on her 7th pregnancy, it was supposed to be a male, but she wanted her sister Rachel to be the mother of more than one of the 12 tribes. So she prayed, and that uterus changed sexes to be a female, and that female became Dinah. So it just goes to show that even though they were jealous of each other, Leah was jealous of Rachel because Rachel was the beloved one that Jacob wanted to marry, and Rachel was jealous of Leah because Leah was able to bear children. They still loved each other, and they still helped each other throughout the whole thing. Now, Leah was destined originally to marry Esav, the evil brother. And if she had married him, she would have had the positive influence to turn his evil inclination into, to metamorphosize it or transform it into him being a good person. So Esav was a very powerful person. As we said before in a previous Parsha, the woman is like the neck. It can turn the head to the left and the right. So if she would have married Esav, he could have been a better person. He could have transformed his evil into goodness. And however, she was such a righteous person herself that she could not see herself with an evil person. So through prayer, meditation, intention, and good deeds, she was able to bypass, transcend, or rise above her predestination and shape her own future the way that she wanted to be, the way that she wanted to be the wife of Jacob, the mother of the 12 tribes, and to be one of the foremothers of our people. So I like that lesson that even though we each have different predestinations, we have our fate and our destiny, we can, through our action, our intention, and our prayers, kind of transform what our future should have been and co-create the future that we want to have. So I thought that was a very beautiful lesson. Another thing that I wanted to share from this week's Bible portion is that Rachel was known for her outer beauty. She represents the tzaddik, or the righteous person. Outwardly, she was much prettier than her sister Leah. Leah represents the Baal Tshuva, the person who does repentance. She was beautiful on the inside, although her outside was not as beautiful as her sister Rachel. And it's a very interesting lesson because in this story, we see what's more important in life, so to speak. In this world, in this day and age, there's so much emphasis on the outside, on the wrapping, so to speak, on looks, and there's a lot of pressure on women, especially for plastic surgery, for makeup, and all kinds of like fake lashes and artificial everything. And we are always feeling like we're not pretty enough, and we always are focused on our outside and not so much on our inside. Well, let's take a look at what happened with these two ladies. Rachel, the prettier one, she was away from her beloved for 14 years until she married him. And then once she did marry him. She was only able to have 2 children, and then she passed away at a young age, and she was not even buried with her husband Jacob. Her sister Leah, who excelled at inner beauty, she was a beautiful person inside, she married Jacob, who was a righteous man. She had more of the 12 tribes. She had 6 of the 12 tribes, whereas her sister only had 2. She lived with him for much longer because she lived with him for 7 years before Rachel did, and then Rachel died, and then she lived with him by herself after that. And she merited to be buried with him. So although Rachel was prettier and Jacob wanted her, Leah, whose inward beauty shone through, she merited the most spiritual rewards. So I think we should learn from here really to put an emphasis on what's on the inside and not to be so caught up in the superficial outside exteriors, which in the end don't really matter. And then the last thing that I want to leave you with is something that says, "V'haya zarecha ka'afar haaretz," and the Almighty said to Yaakov in his dream, "Your descendants will be like the dust of the earth." So I'm just going to read a short little paragraph here from a book called Growth Through Torah by Zelig Pliskin. And it says, "Everyone in the world tramples on the dust of the earth." And whoa, don't we see now anti-Semitism as alive as ever? But in the end, the dust of the earth covers up every one of those people. This will be the history of the descendants of Yaakov, Jacob, the Jewish people. There will be exile after exile, and we've seen, Babylonian, Persian, Roman, all those empires rose against the Jews, and then they fell, and only the Jews remained, as Mark Twain said. Persecution after persecution, the Nazis, pogroms, etc., and what's going on now today. But in the end, they will overcome in the days of the final redemption, and that comes from Mincha Blula. So I just want to leave on a positive note that although we have many trials and tribulations, we shall prevail. It's written in the book, and it is so. So Shabbat Shalom, happy Thanksgiving, much love to everyone. Thank you for watching, and please share. God bless you in everything that you do. Bye-bye.